The clients were people I'd done a house for before, and a friend of mine, Daniel, the builder on this job, was doing work at their place. They had a block of land and were thinking about building this mountain bike base camp out of containers, and I kind of thought that sounded interesting. So that, I think that afternoon or that very moment, I did a little sketch for them and sort of emailed the client, sort of, trying to invite myself, into the job. So, and they liked it.
There was a bit of rough paper going around, and we were using that as a known.
Luckily, the builder Daniel and Brett the steel fabricator are people I know well, and they know my work, so we didn't have to do a lot of detailing or drawing in a sense. A lot of it was really just spoken word and a few sketches and a few images.
Originally it was just going to be containers on the ground with a roof over the top. At probably much less budget.
In the back of my mind, I have these ideas of these boat ramp type images, just with the two singular tracks that just head off into the landscape, and then we would just sit containers on top of that and then just float a roof over the top of it. So it's really, there's only three parts: a base, containers and roof. Because it's a mountain bike camp, I sort of saw the building as a sort of a machine, as almost like a bike component or as a bicycle itself. So I use the analogy of the bike where, the bike has a steel frame, so does the building. There's various kind of gizmos attached to the bike, same with the building.
We chose the Cliplock 700 profile because of the pitch of the roof. You can keep the pitch very low because we wanted the roof to cling as close to the structure as possible for weatherproofing, and it actually just looks nicer.
The roof floats over the top so you can get the breeze running over the top of the containers, and there's ventilation points in the top of the containers so that the hot air can escape and be blown through.
They're basically sitting on a large steel base, which is like two large skids which are created from the 200 UCs we used, and then tied together with cross members. The containers are then placed on top of that, which will tie the structure together, and then the roof placed on top of that again.
The roof is just really to try and give the containers protection, because at the end of the day they're a sort of a dumb metal box, uninsulated dumb metal box, and you really need to keep the sun off them. So putting a massive roof over the top just seemed like the way to try and protect the containers from the sun. I really was determined to make every external material steel, so no timber is used externally. Every element is steel. I often use a palette of greys, what architect doesn't, and it just seems to fit well into the bush landscape. There's just so much grey in the background. We're also trying to camouflage the building. We really don't want it to be seen from the surrounding landscape. The first idea was orientating the long side of the container and opening that up and facing the view and the valley. The site just has a particular orientation that looks out to a great view, and it's a northerly aspect. So it just seemed that orientation was just the place to start. And then to satisfy the brief in terms of space requirements, I just really kept adding containers. We've got this drop-down front door that serves as a deck, and that opens up to the view. Then there's openings on the back of it to open out to the main dining space. And then the other containers have had their doors double-ended so that they can open on both ends. And there were a few other little partitions and doors put in for services. The interior of the containers is a contrast to the exterior, so every external surface is steel and it's all grey, whereas the interior of the containers, I wanted to make them warm and soft, so we lined them with quite a warm coloured plywood and just tried to make these sort of timber cocoons inside for people to live in.
And the lighting that we use there is quite soft as well and inviting, I think.
We left the containers raw internally, like the bathrooms, and simply just waterproof straight onto the steel as a sort of an essay in waterproofing, and so they're very utilitarian, but that suited the site, I think.
It was all fabricated off-site. Once everyone was happy with the size it was going to be and the location was confirmed. From there we went to my workshop and partly designed on a CAD program, which is what I do, is create my workshop drawings. And then once it was all fabricated, it was a matter of coming out here and doing the set-outs, the footings down, and it was a matter of just doing the assemblies.
We hired a warehouse space in Botany, and we just fitted everything out there. So it was close to supplies and homes, basically. And we wanted to do as minimal amount of work as possible once we reached the site, just because of the distance involved out here and the problem of getting materials. The design was partially based around what maximum spans we could get out of materials, as in the roofing, etc. And that sort of was also the correct size that we could buy a lot of sheet materials, and yeah, it just simplified the install once we're here. You know, things could come off the truck, come straight down to site and just be installed without, you know, any cutting or, you know, measuring of anything. We chose the roofing that had the best span, which was set out by the gap between the containers, because that's the longest distance that we have for purlins. And then I went through and looked at the Cliplock 700 range, and it was perfect. And Brett had actually referenced those for the design, and so everything is based around that Bluescope span table.
The spans and the overhangs are still quite lightweight, so it's, you know, in a sense it's no different to the trees with the branches cantilevering out and the canopy that floats over the top. The client liked the idea that the container was a secure and safe thing that could be left up in the bush and would have some kind of fire repellent nature to it. I think its green elements are that it's self-sufficient. You know, it has photovoltaic cells, battery-powered LED lighting, its on-site septic system. And the other thing is that it's actually a tiny little building. So, you know, it sleeps 6 people, but the internal space is only 40 square metres. So, you know, you're getting a lot of people into a very small space. I really did see it as a simple kit of parts, and you just, you know, plonk the frame down, plonk the containers on top, bang the roof on top of that. Best part of the building is the surprise and drama of dropping down the front deck and just being able to go out onto a handrail-free perch that looks out over a stunning valley. There's an easy 100 years in this building. I think the roof is what will protect it. The perfect material.